The Supreme Court has just released its ruling on the future of birthright citizenship here in the United States. That right has long been guaranteed under the 14th Amendment, but President Trump has been waging a battle to limit birthright citizenship to children of U.S. citizens or permanent residents.
Today, we will hear from Americans discussing the latest Supreme Court ruling on birthright citizenship. Check it out.
So they're going to keep the birthright citizenship. Just a slap in the face to the Black American. Ancestors fought for y'all to be free, and we gonna give this to everybody else. And then therefore that shit take all y'all benefits that we fought for. That's why it's hard for our Black Americans to get the benefits that they ancestors fought for. And that's why you hear these foreigners, oh, they just baby mamas, baby daddies, they're just gang bangers, they're just drug dealers. Because those benefits and things that those people could have got that could have detoured them from being those things were taken by people that didn't deserve it. This is so-called Black Americans' birthright. This is their birthright. This shows you that Trump is on the side of the Black American, and you see where the real racist is, instead of everybody want to point the finger at Trump saying that he's a racist. You see who the real racists are. They know the truth. Everybody knows the truth, and they know who we are. They know what was done. They know why the 14th Amendment was written. It was only written to give Black people the same rights that white people had. It wasn't even no foreigners. Because they're saying it happened over 128 years ago, they're going to keep it. It happened 128 years ago because of what was done to us and how we fought to fix that. Our ancestors fought to fix it. They didn't fight to fix it for everybody else. This was done for us. Continue to push those documents for the class action lawsuit, because it's bigger than the class action lawsuit. It's way bigger than the class action. It's not just about money. It's about land. It's about truth. It's about what happened to us and who we are. It's about identity. It's about everything. They reclassify American Indians to Negro, color, and Black. Those Negro, color, and Black people are our great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers. And those great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers, their parents were the people of the owners of this land. This birthright citizenship being struck down is deeper than this.
The Supreme Court just ruled against President Trump, just like he predicted they would. If you are born in the U.S., you are a U.S. citizen, and it doesn't matter what the president says or signs or does. That is the breaking news ruling coming down from the Supreme Court. Now, there is still a way, though, to end birthright citizenship, and I'm going to walk you through that in a second. But first, let's talk about the ruling. Well, the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees birthright citizenship. If you're born in the United States, you are a citizen of the United States. Except for very few rare exceptions, the law of the land says if you're born on U.S. land, you have U.S. citizenship. And it doesn't matter if your parents are not citizens, if they're here illegally, if they're here temporarily. Babies born here are citizens here. And that's not me, that's the justices. And they're not the only ones. The Supreme Court ruled the exact same way when birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment were challenged back in the 1800s. And Congress has passed not one, but two separate laws saying basically the same thing. Now, remember how the president was the first sitting president ever to sit in the courthouse while this case was being argued before the court? Well, his team had argued both the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. They said, yes, the written words of the 14th Amendment say all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. But they said those 5 words, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, was the sticking point. They said it meant anyone here illegally or not permanently has allegiance to the place where they do have citizenship, so they're not under the jurisdiction of the United States, making the 14th Amendment irrelevant. But that seemed to focus more, though, the justices thought, on the parent, not the baby who was born in the U.S. Now, Trump's team also argued the spirit of the law, what it means, saying it's different than what it actually says. They argued it was written specifically to address Black people who were freed from slavery and their children who had been considered property. And because they were now legally understood to be people, they were given citizenship to clear up that weird gray area. Now, Trump's team argued that now the 14th Amendment is being abused by people who come to the U.S. with the intent of giving birth here so the baby would get birthright citizenship. Chief Justice Roberts basically said, okay, so what? Well, it doesn't mean that he likes it or that he's okay with it, but you have to remember that the job of the Supreme Court is to interpret the law, interpret the Constitution. And the ruling basically says the U.S. Constitution guarantees birthright citizenship. That's it, and that's it. But remember I said there is still a way to end birthright citizenship? You can repeal a constitutional amendment with another amendment, but it's only happened once in 1933, where the 21st Amendment repealed the 18th Amendment for prohibition. But that is a tall order. It needs a 2/3 vote in the House and in the Senate, and then it needs 38 states to approve it.
A whole lot of people thought that birthright citizenship was going to fail, okay? However, it did not fail. Okay, so if you are born in the United States of America, you are a birthright citizen. That is the ruling of the Supreme Court. And that is what so many of Black American forefathers fought for way back in the day, okay? Because back in the day, they were trying to base it on race and race alone. However, it's not based on race alone. It's about the fact you were born here, okay? And contrary to what many people believe, Black Americans and white American abolitionists and politicians who were on the right side of history decided that early on, they were like, no, we're going to fight for birthright citizenship instead of it being based on race. Because if, in fact, they were to base it on race, they would have only let white folk be citizens, to be quite honest. They would have based it all on race. But now that I mentioned birthright citizenship and how the Supreme Court just upheld birthright citizenship and how this has been a long ongoing fight to get it way back in the day for Black Americans and white Americans who stood on the side of birthright citizenship, I want to talk about that because I ran into a comment and people didn't understand how Black Americans actually co-founded the United States of America, and this was one of the challenges that Black Americans actually took part in. There is absolutely nothing. Let me say this: there's absolutely nothing that took place in the United States of America good that Black Americans did not participate in. I'm gonna say this: the movie Roots has y'all screwed up. Okay. The movie Roots has y'all screwed up. The Black Americans were doing more than just what you saw on Roots. Okay. If you care to even read the book I wrote on it, okay, Black Americans did everything in the United States of America the same way as white Americans did, okay? There's no white people can do this, white people, Black people couldn't do this. No. As far as skill set, as far as surveying, as far as architects, engineers, Black Americans did the same exact thing as white Americans. And Black America actually did it more because we were enslaved. Okay, we did it more. So the founding of the United States of America was not just white folk. I just want to get that out. I just want to get that out there. It was not just white folk. It was Black Americans. There's nothing, when I tell you, I want y'all to understand this. Enslaved does not mean just working in the fields. We did everything. Everything. We did more, actually. We did everything. That's exactly why Black America can hold this nation together, because we know what to do. We know what to do. Okay? Black America did just as much and more for the founding of this nation than white America. So even when it comes down to birthright citizenship, it was Black Americans who freaking created that bad boy. Straight up. And I'm going to prove it to you right now, okay? If it were not for Black Americans, there would be no birthright citizenship. If it were not for Black Americans, there would be no birthright citizenship. That's facts. That's facts. All of what is going on in the United States of America is because Black Americans fought for it and made this country, our country, live up to what it's supposed to be. When you want to talk about the rulers of the good in America, you're talking about Black America.
Praise Jesus. Beautiful news on a Tuesday. Did I not say that Jesus has the final say? The Supreme Court has now blocked Trump's birthright citizenship executive order, and that means children born here in the United States are still protected under the birthright citizenship. This is a major victory because the Trump administration was trying to limit citizenship for babies born in the United States if their parents were undocumented or only had temporary status. But the Supreme Court said no. So what does this mean for the Trump administration? It means that they cannot enforce this executive order as written, and this is a major legal defeat for their immigration agenda. Now, does this mean they are completely done trying to challenge birthright citizenship? Not necessarily. This administration could still try other legal or political ways to push this issue. But for right now, birthright citizenship stands. So today we thank Jesus for this victory. We thank him for protecting families. And we remember that no matter what any administration tries to do, Jesus still has the final say. Like and share this video to spread this beautiful, great news. And call the law offices of Stephanie I'm going today for any of your U.S. immigration needs.
The Supreme Court just upheld birthright citizenship, so let's talk about it. Now, first, we knew this opinion was coming either yesterday or today, as this is the last, I think, final day of cases for the Supreme Court, so here we are. The New York Times just did an article on this, and I think scotusblog.com is where I've gotten some information too, but more information is on the way as this just came out. Scotusblog.com already has a syllabus and already has the verdict here, where it basically says that children born in the U.S. to folks that are here temporarily, what the colonizers say as unlawfully and so forth, are still going to be considered residents and citizens of this colonial empire upon birth. I know there are a lot of colonizers in my comment section yesterday asking me to say the entire meaning of the 14th Amendment. If you want to go into who should really have birthright citizenship and who shouldn't, based on who is colonizing and occupying this land and who benefits from it, we can get into that, especially because I'm not only Black, but Indigenous. So you want to go there, we can. But I'm being nice and having pleasantries and saying things the way that I am going to say them, with love, respect, and humanity, and a decolonial lens. No borders, no walls. All day. Pause to read and screenshot for yourself. Now let's get into who voted what way, who gave an opinion what way. And as I said in my previous video, Trump tried to do this on his second day in office, this second term around, and basically tried to tell people that children no longer born in the U.S. would automatically have birthright citizenship. So this is the Supreme Court giving an opinion and saying you cannot do that, which is great because it's also a check on his presidential power and making sure that he doesn't have too much and that no one further has too much. Looks like this was a 6-3 situation with Kavanaugh kind of doing a bit of dissenting as well. So we have the three conservative justices, Justice Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas, what the fuck were you doing at the Capitol yesterday? Then we have Justice Neil M. Gorsuch and Justice Alito, who dissented. Kavanaugh, again, kind of dissented in a little bit of his opinion, but mostly agreed with the court's majority. He basically disagreed with the majority in saying that his reasoning to strike down the executive order has to do with federal law and not the Constitution. And with Kavanaugh comes Sotomayor, Barrett, Kagan, Jackson, and Roberts. So that makes 6. I'm tired of the close calls, y'all. Truly.
Breaking news, you guys. I don't even want to waste a lot of your time. The Supreme Court is rejecting Trump's executive order limiting birthright citizenship. Let me repeat that again. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected President Trump's attempt to enforce his executive order ending automatic birthright citizenship for many children born in the United States, leaving the longstanding constitutional interpretation in place for now. So what exactly did the court decide? So the court actually declined to allow Trump's executive order to take effect. The order would have denied automatic U.S. citizenship to children born in the United States if their parents were, 1, in the country illegally or in the U.S. temporarily on visas. So as a result, birthright citizenship remains the law, and children born in the United States continue to receive citizenship under the existing interpretation of the Constitution. So let's talk about why this is important. The case centers on the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which was ratified in 1868, which states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States.
Now, for more than a century, folks, this language has generally been interpreted to mean that nearly everyone born on U.S. soil is automatically a U.S. citizen, right? With limited exceptions, such as children of foreign diplomats. That understanding was affirmed by the Supreme Court in the landmark 1898 case, United States versus Wong Kim Ark, which we talked about yesterday. So let's talk about Trump's argument really quick. The Trump administration argued that the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof does not apply to children whose parents are undocumented immigrants or temporarily present in the United States. The administration actually has maintained that birthright citizenship should be limited to children whose parents have a stronger legal connection to the United States, such as U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. And why did opponents challenge this order? So opponents are arguing that the Constitution clearly protects birthright citizenship. Presidents cannot change the meaning of the 14th Amendment through an executive order. And only a constitutional amendment or a change in Supreme Court precedent could fundamentally alter that right. Now, they've also warned that ending birthright citizenship could leave many children born in the United States without citizenship or create complex legal questions about their status. So what does that mean today, folks? For now, birthright citizenship remains in effect. Babies born in the United States continue to receive U.S. citizenship under current law. And Trump's executive order can't be enforced at this time. The ruling preserves the long-standing interpretation of the citizenship clause while leaving broader debates over immigration and constitutional interpretation, which is likely to continue with this current administration's. And let's talk about why we as Americans should care. This is one of the most significant immigration and constitutional rulings in decades because it literally affects who becomes an American citizen at birth, how much authority a president has to change immigration policy through executive action, and how the 14th Amendment will be interpreted in the future. So legal experts estimate that a different outcome could have affected hundreds of thousands of children born in the United States each year. So listen, folks, I'm just going to put it out here for real. Keep paying attention. And I'm going to continue to give you this news and information so that you can do something with it. You can share it with people. Let other people know that we're here. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, do the things that you need to know because we're starting to get ramped up here and we're going to be providing you more information because honestly, I don't think we've seen the end of this because of course you're going to appeal it. Of course, you're going to try it again. Of course, you're going to do other slick, sneaky ways to go around things to impact hundreds of thousands of people's lives like you did with the temporary protective status that just happened yesterday.
The recent Supreme Court decision has sparked another major debate over immigration, citizenship, and what the future of America looks like. Many foundational Black Americans have been paying close attention because immigration policy has become tied to larger conversations about economics, political representation, and whether the descendants of American slavery will ever receive policies specifically addressing their historical injustices. For many foundational Black Americans, this issue is not simply about immigration. It is about priorities. Many argue that for decades, America has expanded opportunities for new immigrant groups, while the government has yet to fully address the unfinished business of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, discrimination, and the enormous racial wealth gap that still exists today. Black Americans believe that every expansion of citizenship and voting populations changes the political landscape, making it harder for policies focused specifically on descendants of American slavery to gain enough political support. From that perspective, the Supreme Court's decision is viewed as a setback. Those who supported limiting birthright citizenship hoped it would eventually slow future population growth resulting from immigration. They believe that slower growth might place greater attention on long-standing issues affecting foundational Black Americans, rather than continually shifting national priorities toward newer immigrant communities. However, the decision also reminds everyone that the legal debate is far from over. The court's ruling did not necessarily settle every constitutional question surrounding birthright citizenship itself. Instead, Much of the recent litigation focused on whether lower federal courts could issue nationwide injunctions blocking executive actions before cases are fully resolved. That means immigration policy will likely continue being debated in Congress, the courts, and future presidential administrations. Looking at the possible negative effects for foundational Black Americans, some believe continued immigration could increase competition in certain labor markets, affordable housing, small business opportunities, educational resources, and public services. Others argue that political leaders may continue building coalitions around immigrant communities while postponing discussions about reparations or targeted investments for descendants of American slavery. There is also concern among some foundational Black Americans that demographic changes could make it more difficult to build the political consensus needed for legislation specifically benefiting their community if elected officials focus on broader multicultural policies instead. At the same time, there are also possible positive outcomes that should not be overlooked. The Supreme Court's decision does not prevent foundational Black Americans from organizing around issues such as reparations, criminal justice reform, educational investment, business development, home ownership, or voting rights. Those policy goals remain separate questions that can still be pursued through legislation, advocacy, litigation, and civic engagement, regardless of birthright citizenship policy. In addition, constitutional stability can provide predictability for the legal system, while allowing advocates to focus on advancing their own priorities through democratic processes instead of relying on one immigration ruling to determine the future of their movement. Ultimately, the biggest question remains the same. Will elected officials finally address the specific historical harms experienced by the descendants of enslaved Americans? That question existed before this Supreme Court decision, and it still exists today. For foundational Black Americans who support reparations or targeted policies, this ruling may be disappointing because it does not produce the immigration changes they hoped would shift political attention. Yet, it also serves as a reminder that achieving long-term goals will likely depend on sustained political organization, coalition building where appropriate, voter participation, legal advocacy, and clearly communicating policy proposals rather than expecting one court decision to resolve broader historical grievances. Whether someone supports or opposes birthright citizenship, one fact remains clear. The national conversation about immigration, constitutional rights, and America's obligation to address its own history is far from over. The debate over immigration will continue, but so too will the debate over reparations, economic opportunity, and what justice looks like for foundational Black Americans in the 21st century. Tell me what you think about this topic. Hope you find the information in this video informative. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. Thanks for watching.